The smell of burning trash filled the air as Marcelia knelt on the dusty street, her tray of oranges spilled at her feet. A sharp voice rang out, "Watch where you're going, girl." She didn't reply. Her eyes were fixed on the orange rolling away, just like everything else in her life. A fire had taken her family, and now the streets of Lagos threatened to consume her too. The orange stopped at the feet of a barefoot child who snatched it up and disappeared into the crowd. Another small loss in a city that took whatever it wanted. At just 12 years old, Marcelia's life changed in one devastating night. The fire started small, a forgotten candle during one of Lagos' frequent power outages. Her mother had been cooking by candlelight, tired after a long day at the market. The flame caught the edge of a curtain, and within minutes, their small wooden house became an inferno. Marcelia remembered the heat first, then the screams. Her father's voice boomed through the smoke. "Marcelia, where are you?" She had been in the backyard, hanging laundry in the cool evening air. By the time she ran to the front of the house, flames had already engulfed the entrance. Her parents' screams grew fainter as neighbors held her back from running inside. The fire truck arrived too late, its siren a mocking wail in the night. The community rallied around her in those first few days. Women brought food she couldn't eat. Men spoke in hushed tones about arrangements, and children stared at her with a mixture of fear and fascination. But grief was a luxury in Lagos, and soon life demanded she move forward. Marcelia was sent to live with her Cora Ethel in All, one of Lagos' most chaotic neighborhoods. The streets were alive with noise, children playing in gutters, loudspeakers blasting music from makeshift bars, and traders shouting about their wares. The constant din was almost a comfort. It drowned out the echoes of that terrible night. Cora Ethel lived in a one-room apartment that barely fit 2 people, a widow who had never had children of her own. She worked tirelessly to make ends meet. "Marcelia, life is tough, but we don't give up," Cora Ethel often said, her face lined with determination. "Your parents would want you to be strong." Together they sold thrift clothes at Market, waking before dawn to spread their mat and call out to passers-by. Cora Ethel taught Marcelia the art of bargaining, how to spot fake brands, and most importantly, how to read people. "Look at their shoes," Cora Ethel would whisper. "Rich people try to look poor when they shop here, but their shoes always give them away." On better days, they sold mangoes and bananas, Marcelia carrying the trays through the crowded streets. "Original fruit for small money," she would shout, her voice competing with the chaos around her. The work was hard, but it gave her purpose. Each sale meant another meal, another day of school fees, another step toward survival. Life in All had its own rhythm, but not everyone moved to the same beat. Men like BB, who lounged on street corners in pressed shirts and gold chains, represented a different path, one that Cora Ethel warned Marcelia about daily. BB was notorious for his charm and catcalling, targeting young girls who looked vulnerable. "You're too fine to be hawking fruit," he would say, grabbing Marcelia's hand when she passed. His touch left her skin crawling, but she learned to navigate around him, taking longer routes to avoid his corner. Other girls weren't so lucky. Stories circulated about those who accepted BB's offers of easy money and disappeared into Lagos' darker corners. One evening, as Marcelia returned from the market, BB cornered her outside their house. His breath reeked of alcohol and expensive cologne. "Let me take care of you," he slurred, reaching for her arm. Before he could touch her, Cora Ethel's voice thundered through the darkness. "BB, if I see you near this girl again, I'll take you to Alakara police station." Cora Ethel stormed out, wielding a wooden spoon like a weapon. "I know about the girls you've ruined. Touch my niece, and the whole neighborhood will hear what kind of man you really are." BB retreated, but his eyes promised revenge. Cora Ethel pulled Marcelia inside, and held her close. "Listen to me," she said firmly. "In this world, people will try to break you, but you're not just any girl. You're your mother's daughter. Never let anyone make you forget that." Years of struggle passed, marked by small victories and setbacks. Cora, Ethel, and Marcelia managed to save enough to move to a better apartment on Lagos mainland. The new neighborhood wasn't fancy, but it had steady electricity and running water. Luxuries they'd learned not to take for granted. Marcelia threw herself into her education, drawing strength from Cora Ethel's sacrifices. She won a scholarship to study education at the University of Lagos, working part-time to help with expenses. Teaching became her passion, a way to help children who, like her, needed someone to believe in them. After graduation, Marcelia secured a position at a private school in Acadia. The salary wasn't impressive, but the work fulfilled her. Her colleague Joe, a bubbly mathematics teacher, became her closest friend. Joe's persistent optimism slowly chipped away at the walls Marcelia had built around her heart. "You can't hide from life forever," Joe said one day, extending an invitation to her brother's birthday party. "Come on, it's just one evening. Who knows? You might even enjoy yourself." Reluctantly, Marcelia agreed. The party was held at an upscale restaurant in Victoria Island, making her feel out of place in her simple dress. She kept to herself until Joe introduced her to Jack, her husband's colleague from the oil company. Jack wasn't what she expected. Tall and soft-spoken, he wore his success quietly. No flashy jewelry or designer labels. Their conversation flowed naturally, touching on books, politics, and their shared love of traditional Nigerian cuisine. By the end of the night, Marcelia found herself smiling more than she had in years. "You know," Jack said as they exchanged numbers, "you remind me of my mother. The real her, not the society woman she pretends to be. She taught before marrying my father, and I've never seen anyone light up talking about their students the way you do." Their relationship developed slowly, built on long phone conversations and weekend visits to local art galleries. Jack worked in oil and gas but shared Marcelia's passion for education, often volunteering at her school's career day. To him, she was a breath of fresh air, intelligent, grounded, and unimpressed by material wealth. When Jack suggested meeting his family, Marcelia's old fears resurfaced. His mother, Teresa, and sister, Miriam, lived in a mansion in Banana Island that screamed old money and power. The gates alone probably cost more than what she earned in a year. Teresa greeted her with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, assessing everything from Marcelia's modest handbag to her unmanicured nails. Miriam's disdain was more obvious, barely concealing her sneer as she air-kissed Marcelia's cheeks. The interrogation began over lunch, served by uniformed staff on imported china. "So, where did you study?" Teresa asked, delicately cutting her fish. "London? Oxford?" "No, ma'am. The University of Lagos," Marcelia replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Teresa exchanged a loaded glance with Miriam. "Interesting. And your family? What do they do?" "My aunt raised me," Marcelia said simply. "She's a trader at a market." Miriam nearly choked on her wine. "A market woman? Jack, darling, surely you can't be serious about this connection." Jack's hand found Marcelia's under the table, squeezing gently. "Mom, Miriam. Enough. Marcelia is the best thing that's happened to me, and I won't let you ruin this with your prejudices." The rest of the lunch passed in tense silence, broken only by the clink of silverware and Miriam's occasional sighs. As they left, Teresa pulled Jack aside, but Marcelia heard her anyway. "Think about your future, son. Some people are meant to cross class lines." Despite Jack's unwavering support, Marcelia couldn't shake the feeling of inadequacy that Teresa and Miriam had planted. Their relationship progressed, engagement, marriage, setting up their own home. But the pressure grew heavier with each passing year. When Jack brought up the topic of children after 5 years of marriage, Marcelia's carefully constructed world began to crack. "The doctor said we should start trying," he said enthusiastically. "My mother's already planning the baby shower." "Jack, hospitals make me nervous," she deflected, avoiding his suggestion to see a fertility specialist. The truth burned in her throat, threatening to escape with each lie. One afternoon, she broke down during lunch with Joe. "I'm scared, Joe. How do I tell my husband I can't have children? What if he leaves me?" Joe placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "He deserves to know the truth, Marcelia. Secrets don't stay hidden forever." Unknown to them, Miriam sat in the next booth, recording every word on her phone. Her wicked smile promised trouble to come. Teresa's 60th birthday celebration was held at the Federal Palace Hotel. Lagos elite gathered to pay homage to old money. Marcelia felt out of place among the designer dresses and diamond-drip necks, but Jack's presence anchored her. During dinner, Miriam stood, champagne flute in hand. "Before we eat, let's pray." Her words sliced through the murmur of conversation. "Dear God, thank you for exposing liars in this family, especially those hiding that they can't have children." The room fell silent, crystal glasses freezing midway to painted lips. Jack frowned, his voice tense. "Miriam, what are you talking about?" Miriam's smirk widened as she played the recorded conversation, Marcelia's confession echoing through the ballroom's perfect acoustics. Jack turned to Marcelia, his voice softer but insistent. "Marcelia, is there something you need to tell me?" Tears welled in her eyes as the truth finally broke free. "Jack, I can't have children. Years ago, before I met you, I made a mistake. The procedure wasn't safe, and it damaged my womb." Teresa's triumphant gasp cut through the silence. "I knew she wasn't right for you," she exclaimed, pearl necklace quivering with righteous anger. "A liar, an opportunist, and barren." Miriam twisted the knife. "Jack, we told you she wasn't good enough. Now look where your stubbornness has led us." Jack stood, his face a storm of emotions. "Enough," he snapped, silencing both women. He turned to Marcelia, his voice cracking. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I was scared," she sobbed. "I thought I'd lose you. After everything with my parents, I couldn't bear losing anyone else." Without another word, Jack walked out, leaving Marcelia alone in a room full of whispers and judgment. Back at her aunt's house, Marcelia collapsed into Cora Ethel's arms. "Auntie, I've lost everything," she cried. "My marriage, my dignity, everything." Cora Ethel held her close, just as she had that night years ago when the fire took everything else. "My child, God's plans are greater than ours. Keep praying and trust Him to restore what's broken." Weeks turned into months. Marcelia threw herself into teaching, finding solace in her students' innocent love. One morning during assembly, the world spun sideways. She woke up in the hospital, Joe holding her hand. The doctor returned with test results, his face unreadable. "Mrs. Ojo, I have surprising news. You're pregnant." Marcelia stared at him in disbelief. But I was told I couldn't have children. The damage was permanent." "Well," the doctor said with a gentle smile, "medicine isn't always exact. Sometimes the body heals in ways we don't understand. Your pregnancy is high risk, but with proper care, there's no reason you can't carry to term." Cora Ethel insisted Marcelia tell Jack. "He deserves to know," she said firmly. "This child is a miracle, and miracles are meant to be kept secret." After much prayer, Marcelia agreed. She wrote Jack a letter, pouring out everything. her childhood trauma, her fears, and now this unexpected blessing. 3 days later, he appeared at her school. "How is this possible?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "God works in mysterious ways," Marcelia replied softly. "I understand if you don't want." Jack cut her off, pulling her into his arms. "I've missed you," he whispered. "These months without you, I've been angry, hurt, but I never stopped loving you." At her aunt's house later that evening, Jack knelt before her. "Marcelia, I prayed for clarity, and now I see that we're meant to be together. Can we start over? No more secrets, no more fears." Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Jack. Thank you for giving me another chance." The pregnancy was difficult, but Marcelia faced each challenge with renewed faith. Jack was her constant support, attending every appointment, holding her hair during morning sickness, and defending her against his family's continued skepticism. Their son, Emmanuel, was born on a rainy Lagos morning, a symbol of hope and new beginnings. His first cry brought tears to everyone's eyes, even Teresa's. "He's beautiful," Teresa whispered, holding her grandson. "Marcelia, we misjudged you." The strength it took to carry this child, to face all our cruelty. "I hope you can forgive us." Miriam, too, found herself transformed by Emmanuel's innocent love. "He has your eyes," she told Marcelia one day. "Clear and honest, everything I wasn't." Years later, Marcelia watched Emmanuel play in their garden, his laughter mixing with the sounds of Lagos traffic. She thought about how far she'd come, from the ashes of tragedy to the joy of motherhood, from fear to faith, from loss to love. Cora Ethel sat beside her, gray now but still strong. "Look at what God has done," she said proudly. From that scared little girl to this, a mother, a teacher, a survivor. Marcelia smiled, remembering the orange that rolled away that day on the dusty street. Life, like Lagos itself, could be harsh and unforgiving. But with faith, love, and the courage to keep going, even the darkest nights could lead to brighter days. "With God, there's always a way," she whispered, holding Emmanuel close as the sun set over their city of dreams and second chances. Thanks for watching. Stay updated for part 2 of this story, which will drop soon. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Turn on your notification bell. By liking and subscribing, you enable us to continue producing more videos. Thank you, and see you in the next video.